Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. This show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon, USA area. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about. And my guest this evening is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan.
Okay.
Michael Jordan. Thank you for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully. It's great to be here.
I'm nervous. I got a temporary director now, and I'm not used to the way it was going, but it's going fine now. Okay, but I'm glad you're here.
I'm grateful to be here.
And you said nice things to me that got me all turned on. Now I don't know what to do.
That's great.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about the spiritual roots of love and tolerance. And we've chatted about this in the gym because we became friends at the big health club nearby.
Correct.
And we've been for a long time just talking and chatting in between our workout, like that sort of a thing. And each time we get together and visit for a few moments, it's hard to pull away and go do my next routine because we get something going. And we always get something going when we start talking and visiting with each other. There's something about you that's very unusual. It's very moving.
Well, thank you.
You got some good stuff going for you.
I think it's a natural connection that you and I have when you come in. And I see you walk in with a sign like this around your neck. And you always have this feeling, as I said before we started today, this feeling of charity and love for other people, and yet very direct and outspoken in how you communicate your values. And we naturally sort of come together. I generally get a hug from you, if you think that's unusual, you know. And yet I watch other people also communicate with you, do the same. So you carry this persona when you come in. So we do have those conversations. They're wonderful conversations that are very impromptu, and they always end somewhat on a deeper thought. Would you agree?
Yeah, and there's something that goes on between us that's hard to define.
Correct.
And it's extremely unusual, and it's really great. And when you and I talk for a minute or so, something happens and your eyes get kind of wet, or mine do. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but we'll be getting into that in the second half of the program. As you know, the first half will be the bio segment where we'll talk to you about who you are, your family, and that sort of a thing, so people get an idea where you're coming from.
Okay.
And too bad they can't be in your presence right now as you talk, but we'll just pretend that they are.
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
All right. You know, I got a couple of trick questions now and then to confuse you. You know that, don't you?
I forgot about the bio part, so we'll just roll with it. Yeah.
All right. If I would ask your best friend, who is Michael? What would your best friend say? Be your best friend. Michael is what?
Michael is Michael's a family man. He's been married for since 1981, so 35 years to the same beautiful woman.
35 years.
Yeah. He has a natural affinity for relating and loving people, okay? He's raised his kids. He has 6 kids. He's raised his 6 kids. They're from around 34 to 14 to be the same, to be open, to share their thoughts and emotions. You know, he has dysfunctions like everybody else. And in fact, some people say that his family is a little different, a little odd, a little dysfunctional. I think that's what they would say, something like under that. Yeah.
Boys, girls, how many?
So we have 3 boys and 3 girls, evenly split.
Which group likes you the most, the boys or the girls?
I would say the girls. Yeah, the girls.
Why is that?
Probably because they expressed that to me, and I had a tender spot in my heart for my girls. That makes me a little emotional. Probably that. I mean, the boys are. That's a very tough question. Is that one of your tougher questions?
Of course. They catch you off guard.
Yeah, because my boys, we have a very close element to us. We've done a lot together. I raised him to go through scouting. We've camped together. We've snow caved together. I've gone through difficult times with them. It's hard to say. That's a tough question.
Of course, yeah. And talk about them for a minute. How old are they, and boys and girls, and a few words about them. Who's the 34-year-old?
That's intense. That's Skylar. Skylar's 34. He's like his grandfather. He's a kind of an entrepreneurial, maverick kind of kid. I had blue hair growing up and wore flip-flops everywhere.
Blue hair.
Yeah, changed his hair color. He lives down in Huntington Beach area, and he
beautiful country down there.
Yeah, he loves it. He likes to surf. He's not married, and he sells solar, and he currently has just started a new enterprise working with doctors, doing holistic medicines and prescribing them and things like that. And he's starting to do that now. That's Sky. My second daughter, Shay. She's lives in Canada, in Edmonton, married. She runs about 3/4 of a Sephora store. Very driven, A-type personality, different from Skylar. Skylar's sort of like a wet noodle, laid back and easygoing. McKenna's my third daughter. She lives here locally. I have 2 grandchildren from her, with her husband Kevin in Hillsboro. They're over every Sunday. She had no growth hormone in her body. We had to give her shots growing up. She's very relationship based, yet very kind of tough inside, you know. Austin is just married last August, and he's in Idaho going to school. Wants to be a dentist. Wonderful human being, wonderful bride, Tessa, and wonderful story how they found one another. It's incredible. First girl we ever kissed. Fell in love with her, and then it's a long story. I'll leave that one. And then Marcella lives here locally with us. She's 18, just graduated, kind of a free spirit, kind of a 70s hippie sort of person. And then Jack is 14. He's our last child. So there's a 20-year gap from the oldest to the youngest.
You're going to have any more?
No, I'm glad my wife's biological clock ran out. Yeah. No, I can't do that. Yeah.
How'd you get to be so sensitive, and you're so full of feeling, your eyes are so expressive? What is it about you that has you that way, the way that you are?
That's it. I think some of that is in every person. This is what I believe. I believe that every person has specific values and gifts. Some will bring things that they're born with, let's say, God-given, or maybe it's innate. I think that is one of my gifts. I know when I was little, I remember our family broke up with divorce and domestic violence in our house, alcoholism. My mom died when I was around 12.
Oh, wow, man.
Yeah. And so we went through a lot, and I remember as being a young child, like 4 or 5, looking at the 2 parents arguing and can feel on both sides of the element. So they say that kids of alcoholism and family, one of the things is an empath, and I think I have emphatic elements to me.
Yeah.
But I think then the other part of it is what you do with that. If you nurture it and grow it, and feed it, I think it comes from that. And as we have here in this thing, it's, the spiritual roots of love and tolerance. It comes out of trying to have an affinity with deity, and you feel those feelings as you grow it.
All right, hold that for now, because that's for the second half of the show. Let's get the
Okay, sorry, I got off on that. Yeah.
Don't. I'm asking questions, and you're obliged to answer, and you're fine.
So I think it's both.
And what's beautiful is I'm experiencing you like we do at the gym sometimes.
Oh, that's right.
It's beautiful. Yeah. And when and where were you born?
I was born in Oakland, California.
Oakland?
Yeah, in the Bay Area, and that's where all of our roots are from. In 1956, so I'm 60. And
60, look at you, man. Look at you.
Oh, look at you. Yeah, there we go.
Why were you born?
You know, I was born, I'm sure, out of love from my parents to have another child. And I was born, I think, to come into a family to fulfill the destiny that each of us have in our lives, to try to begin our lives and fulfill whatever we feel our destiny is, to try to complete it.
What is your destiny? You're great to guess because well, it makes you think.
I don't know holistically, fully what my destiny is. A lot of times I don't know if I've met all of what my destiny is. I think that's a thought that we ruminate over in our minds.
Of course.
My destiny would be to finish well, and it doesn't involve so much finances or acclamation of things. It's more of a, how many people did I have an impact on?
And I'm sure there's a lot.
Yeah, over the period of time, you know, how many, what mark did you make in life? You know, how many people came to your funeral when you passed away, and what kind of thing did you do?
You're so marvelously sensitive.
I don't know. Yeah.
And anything significant about your cultural heritage that's worth mentioning to the viewers, or you're just plain old American white bread?
I know where all of our ancestry essentially comes from my father's verbal tales. So they're from England and a little French, a little Scottish. So I'm probably a normal individual. Yeah.
Do you have a religious preference?
We are. My father had no religious preference, but we joined the Mormon church when I was 13.
13?
Yeah. And so we've followed that church.
You're still practicing?
Yes, I am.
It's good for you?
Yes, it is. Yes. Yeah.
My experience when I went across Mormon people, there's a few thoughts that come to mind. I'm not sure it generalizes across all Mormons, but there's a certain sense of cleanliness and neatness and warmth, and willing to look you right in the eye.
Yeah.
And visit with you that way. There's something, it's hard to put into words something about Mormons in general, and I'm very careful about these kinds of generalizations, but you have that quality in spades. And my compliments are straight up honest, as yours are, yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of different stereotypes of different religions, and that's kind of what we came to talk about, is that there's a holistic element over all religions, and that we shouldn't be intolerant of people's different faiths or backgrounds or religions.
Yeah.
Right.
How about your formal education? How much education did you get?
I have a master's degree in business and an undergraduate in business.
And you're still working?
Yes. I do, actually I do Medicare sales right now and work with people of age predominantly, and people of the lower income echelon that are both generally Medicare and Medicaid card carriers. Is what I do.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing it almost since last September. And before that I had banking experience of about 22 years in mortgage banking, but I can't pick up that sword anymore. I don't believe in that anymore. So I've been doing this. I like it.
Why do you like it? Dealing with people of that older age bracket?
Because go back to what you asked was my destiny in life. Think about it. If you look at banking, you're putting people into a home, but you're also encumbering them in a debt that we found recently can be harmful to them. Okay? When you're working with people of lower echelon, you're meeting the very basic needs of people that don't have means, and you're helping them with insurance that can serve them, love them, lift their burdens, and you're only doing that to them if you can help them and assist them. Secondly, when you come in and you talk to them, they have a plethora of experiences, and they teach you and they lift you, and you feel their presence when you talk to them. It's a wonderful thing, an aspect of that type of business. It really is. If I could do that all day long, I just would love it. It's great. Yeah. You don't make as much funds, but it isn't that about that.
Yeah. Sounds like you've cut through a lot of stuff. I wanted to say crap, but I shouldn't do it. It's a family show. That occurs between human beings instead of the stuff that's really important, and experiencing each other rather than just the words. And you have, now your standard question is, do you have a boyfriend or girlfriend? And we cover all the bases, whether you're gay or not, but do you have a partner?
I do.
Of course you do.
Again, I've been married to my wife for, 35, I think that's what it is now, 35 years. Yeah, and I just mentioned to you that she just had open heart surgery.
Yes.
So we're going through this portion of our life that we didn't really count on, and we're connected as a family. Yeah.
How long ago was the surgery?
It was a month ago. Well, actually, the 31st of last month. Yeah.
And the result of the surgery was encouraging. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. Is that true?
It was successful surgery, is the best way you could say it. She had a leaky heart valve, which could have caused her to die, but they repaired it. And it's repaired like, it works like brand new, according to the results. She's just going through recovery right now.
Yeah, and she's recovering okay.
Yes, she is, but not as fast as she wants to, but yes, she is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can she do some sort of normal activities around the house, or is she still kind of slow and doesn't get around too much yet?
She's up essentially walking, but she has the residual, she has pain in her chest. She gets nauseated, but she's like a trooper, and she walks 1 to 3 miles a day. And then
even she does?
Yeah, she does. That's what she's been doing, yeah. She's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Politically, do you have any political leanings, left or right or center or what? Or do you avoid talking about those kinds of things?
I don't avoid talking about that at all. I like those conversations. I'm an independent registered.
Mm-hmm.
I have, I don't really believe in the platform of almost on both sides of the platform. I cannot support the Republican side in the way they do things. There's some elements on the Democratic side that I have leanings of not supporting as well.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. So I like the dialogue of both. So the same element when we walk in the gym, it doesn't matter to me. I would like to hear what they have to say, and then talk and counsel about it. Yeah. Yeah, that's the best answer.
Nothing is off limits, huh?
No, I don't have a strong political leaning toward one side or the other.
What's the difference between sympathy and empathy and compassion? Sympathy and empathy and compassion. You know what the difference is between those three things?
I don't categorically, but I would give you my best answer on that.
Please. Mm-hmm. They're kind of hard to answer.
They are. I mean, sympathy is a sense of having a sense of feeling for someone in their position, regardless of if you think that they either brought that upon themselves or it was something that happened to them. Empathy is more of an internal feeling. You feel what that person's feeling. It's like you can almost, when you can get this feeling in your gut about them. Yeah. Compassion is probably its very close cousin, would you not say? Yeah, it's the same sort of thing. Compassion, perhaps, is empathy acted upon.
I've never heard it put that way before.
Perhaps that's what it is, because you're actively going and doing something compassionately for and on behalf of that person, not just having empathy or in its, that's what I would say.
I toy with my education as a psychologist, and now and then I come up with a new idea for me. And if someone seems sort of lacking in empathy, generally speaking, then I say, do you have EDD?
Empathy dysfunction disease? What is that?
It's something like empathy deficiency disorder.
Oh, there you go. There you go. That's funny. Yeah, that's good.
But then you have to be pretty severe in that regard to warrant that diagnosis. Yeah. And sometimes I discover that my empathy qualities are not as what they should be, because a few minutes later I thought, I should have listened to that person a little longer. They needed me to hear them, because it comes around full circle, because if I really listen to them and hear them, then I feel better, or something that goes on there.
I believe in that, yeah, that's right. Are you saying there's a reciprocal aspect of you listening that you're empowered and strengthened after the fact? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I agree with.
Yeah. See, and now we're going back and forth as we oftentimes do in the gym. It's rather difficult for you here and now, because I'm hosting this show and I've been doing this for a number of years, and I'll be asking you questions that you're not familiar with anyhow. But we talk about or touch on those kinds of issues in the gym.
That's what we do.
Between going to different sets and different machinery, yeah.
That's right.
You ought to see this guy with his shirt off.
Not so much lately. But
you're looking good. Without BSing, yeah. Any the memberships in political, social, or civic organizations that are worth mentioning?
No, not that I can think of.
Persons from the past or alive today that you particularly look up to or looked up to, or like, any names come to mind for you from history or alive today?
You asked me that question the last time I was here. I remember, and I remember what I answered, and I would probably still say the same. I mentioned to you that I spent some time in South Africa during apartheid, and Nelson Mandela was at the time in Robben Island as a prisoner.
Yes.
And when South Africa came out and Nelson Mandela came out, I've watched his documentaries and the like. He's an inspiration to me, Nelson Mandela, because of his strength and what he overcame in all those years. And so I would probably answer the same on that. People of history, that came to my mind. I would probably put a fork in that, because that's what I answered last time, and I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a marvelous memory there, huh?
I do remember answering that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a natural thing for me, because I remember him overcoming so much. Turned a whole nation state around.
Yeah.
Apartheid was deeply enrooted in that state of a police state. And I remember seeing, when I was there as a missionary. There was a small town. Can I go off really quickly?
Of course, please.
There was a small town called Brockpond that we were in that was primarily a Dutch Reformed blue-collar town. And the government was integrated in with the religion, and there was these little trucks that drove around with cages on the back. And at nighttime, at 10 o'clock at night, or there was a time where a siren would go off that we used to remember when we were kids. There were air raid sirens, if you remember that time in the 60s. Yes. And I asked someone about it, and really what it was a curfew. And if you were out after that time period and you were a black human being, they would pick you up, stick you in the back, and you would watch them drive by with these people in the back with their fingers in the cage.
And you
like
saw
that. I did see that. I watched that, and I lived among the people there and loved the people, but the country went through that metamorphosis, and that was because of one man, primarily, him resisting. And there were exterior forces and wars and things going on, but predominantly Nelson Mandela was that person that was the figurehead. You follow me?
Yes, I do.
And so, you think about one person, can one person make an impact in their life?
Yeah.
And whether it's that big of an impact or myriads of smaller impacts over myriads of smaller people, we make an impact.
If we were magic, could we then make an arrangement where we could have 3 or 4 Nelson Mandelas to spread around the globe to have things be better for human beings?
That would be a great thing. But that's our calling to do that.
Yeah.
That's our calling, and that's what we cannot shy from. You understand? In every way, shape, or form, we impact people. And we're writing our history books on that. We cannot shy from that. We cannot have signs like this that are not stated in our simple way, in the most humblest of way, right? We don't know if we'll become a Nelson Mandela, but we should reach out and listen to our intuitive voice and talk to people and touch those little impacts of people that might myriad down and impact someone else to become a Nelson Mandela. Follow me?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so.
That's our talks. These are our gym talks, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful things. That's why I love talking with you so much.
You have pictures or stuff now. If you want to show some of that during the second half of the show, or you want to wait till we...
I'm good.
Let's take a break now.
Okay, that's great.
Let's take a break, and we'll come back in a couple of minutes and talk about spiritual roots of love and tolerance. All right, we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. For you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people about who they are and what they're interested in. And we're going to be talking about spiritual roots of love and tolerance and all sorts of other stuff related to it. And my mind's kind of wandering now because there were so many things I want to talk to you about, but we'll just let it happen. So, how shall we start? You have some photographs, or you want to talk about some of the questions you have you submitted to me as prompt questions? What do you want to do?
I could start off maybe
Yes.
show a picture of my father because and where would I show this? Just here?
You give it to me.
So this is a picture of my father and mother on the date after they were married. They're in their 50s Buick here, and they're about ready to drive away from their wedding.
Wow.
In 1950. And it's a wonderful picture because my mom's 12 years his junior, beautiful, and he married the love of his life. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And it's a great period picture. In relation to this, in our topic, spiritual roots of love and tolerance, I told a story about my father, who was a voracious storyteller. And it was a segue into him teaching and mentoring us about listening to your inner voice and hearing thoughts that come into your mind that would direct you. And it tells the story of my dad, interesting enough, as a B-26 bombardier in the European theater.
I remember that period.
Yes, and he, that's interesting. I can't go that far back.
I'm a World War II vet.
Yeah, my goodness. So he heard a voice. He was a bombardier, and the Air Corps told him never to pull his head out of the sight. And he heard a voice distinctly behind him that said,
to be on the sight, your face is right against it so you can see what's going on.
His head's right down as if he was peering down this cup in a Norden bomb sight.
Yeah.
It's probably not the best analogy because it occurred during a wartime about love and tolerance, but it is because he heard a voice inside of his head that told him to get his head out of the sight, and he ignored it. And then he heard it again, more sternly, and he thought it was a navigator. He still didn't take his head out of the sight, but he spoke to the navigator. And the third time it said, "Damn it, Jack, get your head out of the sight now." And he tells the story of picking his head up, and as he did, a burst of flak came through and hit his flak, blew off two chunks of his flak suit where his head was. And he told that story without any sense of religion or spirituality to it, because he didn't have any church that he belonged to. But he told it on the aspect of of hearing insights in your head and having a connection with deity, or someone told him that, and it saved his life. He had many, many examples of that. We were raised by a father who taught us to follow our insights, to be independent and hear and listen and follow your inner voice.
So the inner voice, that's something that speaks to you, and you might even hear it sometimes.
You could hear it, yes.
Uh-huh.
It's.
Have you had that happen to you?
I had it, and my story is about the more that you listen to that inner voice, because I feel it comes from deity, and it comes to all people of all faiths and religions, okay? We make sure we understand that.
Sure.
That the more that you follow that, the more love and tolerance you will have for people, because it is a voice of tolerance and love. And if you hear it and do it, you will have love and tolerance for people, and it will come out of you. It will emanate from you. You follow me on that?
That's the reason I wear it. That's my favorite sign, of course.
I like
because
that sign.
When I get a whole bunch of different kinds of reactions, and now and then there's someone who particularly likes the sign, and then I'll talk about it and where it comes from. And then, as we're parting, I'm aware my inner voice is going on. And I'm aware there's a feeling resulting as a result of the exchange I had with this person I just left a moment ago. And the voice says, yeah, you feel good. And that person you were just talking to, you could see in their eyes that they were feeling good at the moment. Because there's a sense of agreement that's beyond just an intellectual exchange between me and this person. Especially little old ladies with white hair.
That's very true.
They were available at that age to be tender and naked, so to speak, with each other.
Mm-hmm.
The inner voice says, that's good. That's good. It's hard to put words to those kinds of things.
That's exactly right. So we've not had this conversation before, although we've had many conversations like unto it.
Uh-huh.
But I liken under that conversation, that's exactly what occurs to me when I'm talking to someone. I'm feeling what they're feeling, and I'm almost hearing my voice listen to what they may be thinking at the time, and I'm waiting to hear what they would say. Sometimes I'll even pre-think and pre-feel what they would say.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from, but I've had that experience many times. So in a way, it's an odd thing the way I've thought about it, and I'll finish up. It's almost like there's 4 conversations going on. So I have this faith that there's a God in heaven, and essentially what I would see is he's talking to you, and he's talking to me, and we're talking to one another, and I'm waiting to hear what he says to you, so I can hear what he would say to you that you would get from him to talk to me. Does that make sense?
Kinda.
It does. Basically, I'm waiting to hear what God might bring to me from you.
Well, for me, I hear the kinds of things you're talking about, and I'm an agnostic, a skeptic.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
somewhere from beyond or beyond what I'm capable of thinking about, something happens, and there is a voice attached to it, even though I'm using my brain to hear a voice.
Yeah.
But the end result is I'm feeling something. Bottom line is feeling. And the end result is I feel good. I feel validated. I feel like, hey, there's no words to describe how good I feel.
Well, then we would, in the same vein, then we find common ground, because we've not had this conversation yet. We've had that experience. 20, 30 times, I have no idea, but it occurs when we talk together. And whether I place that on deity or you place it on a sense of skepticism or not sure, it doesn't matter to me. I just know that occurs, and it's happened so many times, and it gives me a sense of tolerance and love for people.
I have a new respect for you. I had a lot of respect for you in the first place, but I remembered that you had talked about Mandela and your adventures in South Africa. And I don't know why I'm revisiting that again, because I wanted to dwell on that for a moment more. All right, you got some more pictures to show, or you want to talk about some of the questions you asked here?
I'd probably talk about some of the questions or some of the experiences here.
Okay.
Okay? All right, you want me to share?
Sure.
All right. So, I believe that there's a sense of calmness and peace that comes to all people when they think deeply on things of importance, or what I call meditation. Okay?
Okay.
All right. I think that if we thought more deeply as a culture and we went deep on hearing our inner voice, we would be more tolerant, more loving, we would have less divisiveness and conflict in the world. Okay? Personal meditation. For me, that's seeking to hear God's voice in my mind. Okay? I believe, secondly, that there's sacred places where a person could go that might augment or support that experience that you call feeling good. Okay?
Okay.
I've had that experience in the mountains. I've had it on the beach. I have it when I ride my motorcycle and I'm free. And there's sacred places I've been in. An example, I've been in Jerusalem. I felt that at the Wailing Wall when I was there.
Wow.
I felt it out on the Dead Sea when I looked out over that area. I felt it in the grotto here in Portland. There was a church in Zimbabwe when I was in the middle of Harare, which was Salisbury at the time. Walked into it, felt a sense of reverence and peace. So when you bring those two things together, personal meditation or seeking to think deeper about important things, charity, love, other people, not guided by materialistic us versus them, divisiveness, you're this religion, you're that religion, you're black, you're gay, you're this, etc., that it softens those dividing points between people. If you go to a sacred place, you meditate, I believe that you can get deeper insights that give you that sense of love and charity.
How long do you have to be in one of those sacred places?
You don't
10 seconds, 3 minutes, or half an hour, or what?
I'm saying that the synergy, that you don't have to be in a sacred place to happen, but if you go to a sacred place and you meditate, that the two combined can provide the two parts create a greater whole. Does that make sense? You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I think so.
I can meditate on my motorcycle as I'm going down the highway, feeling the air in my face, etc. I can have deeper thoughts. But when I go to, and I set aside a time and I go to meditate and for me to commune with God, then it creates a deeper catalyst. And so what my story is I did that. And one of the places I did that in was the LDS Mormon Temple in Lake Oswego. One day I was listening to one of our mentors, and he said, you should try to go once a week and meditate and do it. And a little light in my head went on. And so it was kind of like Forrest Gump. A very similar funny analogy. You know, when his girlfriend told him to run, and he just ran. He did everything literally. I took it like that, and I started going every Saturday morning. I did that for 10 years.
10 years.
Yep, I did it for 10 years straight, just like Forrest ran across the United States and back. And I went to meditate and hear God's voice. And what I put in the paper to prepare was, initially I struggled with a lot. I heard voices that told me I needed to improve rather than hear inspiration about being maybe too caustic with my wife or too direct or whatever it might be. But gradually, over about 3 years, the voices in my head calmed down, and I started to get ideas and thoughts, spiritual thoughts. And they started to change me, and I started to, then I started to think about those things and start to apply the doing of them, not just the thinking of them.
Yeah.
And then as I would leave that sacred place, I noticed that it diminished from me, and I would go back to being more like a natural person. And then over that period of 10 years, I started to carry that out and try to keep it and retain it. And that's when some wonderful things happened. That's when we started having our conversations. And my religion of which I carry was not so important to me as much as I was having experiences with all kinds of people. People that were Muslims, people that were gay, people that were black, people that were white, and we would go through that process that you and I just talked about. I would wait to hear what Heavenly Father or God would talk to them about, to them, and then I would be fed by that. Just like you said, when you left, you feel better.
Yeah.
I started having those experiences. And then I determined that when I heard His voice, I would shorten the time from hearing to doing. So a lot of times we hear things and we're skeptical. Like you'd say, oh, call your friend up. Oh yeah, I should do that. And then a week goes by and you don't do it. Well, if you do get those promptings about something that you should do, go next door, talk to your neighbor, and then you shorten the time from hearing to doing. It's like this sign. Mm-hmm. I put in here, so, you know, when you get up in the morning, how do you determine what signs you're going to put on your neck? Do you get a thought?
A thought, a whim, whatever.
So what would happen?
Where I'm going and what kind of company I'm going to be in.
Okay. I don't mean to interview you, but
of course.
But I had that down in here because one of the questions, because when I see you come in with that sign on your neck, there must be some pre-thought about what I would put on that sign to impact someone today. There must be some nuance in your head. So in this analogous sense, what would happen if Don never put the sign on his neck? What would happen if you pre-thought it out and resisted it out of fear and didn't put it on your neck?
As all sorts of reactions depending on what I started out with as I first consider the sign or which sign I'm going to be wearing. And I think I will wear the sign depending on what I want out of my existence and that morning or that day. And I feel good about the question you just asked me because I find more often now I'm wearing this sign. I've got about 60 signs because what I'm going to be with people, even though there's now and then someone gets really offended at a sign like this even. And most of the time they'll be neutral or most of the time there's friendship or warmth and sometimes real intimacy where someone gets a tear in their eye.
Right.
And what does that do for me? It validates me. What's life worth for me? Connecting, feeling the connection of somebody else that it's hard to put words to.
No, but that's...
And I know this is what's going to happen if I wear this sign when I leave the house.
Okay. This sign, before we came onto the show, what it says to me is that you're about listening to your intuitive voice and you're fearless in going out and promoting to the world. I don't know anyone else that puts a sign on their neck.
You tell my wife that.
Yes.
She thinks I'm weird.
It doesn't, but it's something I'll always remember all my life and has changed and altered my life and encouraged me as a human being to share my thoughts and emotions and to listen to my intuitive voice, to not be afraid. Mm-hmm. That's what you've done for me in a way. I told you that, you know, you're about 29 years my senior. Maybe you don't look it, but I would hope that one day I would be able to finish my life like that. Mm-hmm. And so when I talk about hearing this voice and shortening the distance from hearing to doing, that's what I did. And I started to have marvelous experiences, crazy experiences, kind of like Alice going down the rabbit hole experiences. Because, you know, why would you live that way? Why would you carry a sign on your neck knowing that you would go out, which would evoke all kinds of experiences and people talking to you?
Last Sunday was World Hug Day. Had you heard about that before?
I get one every time I see you in the gym, so I don't know.
Because in every country in the world, that day is dedicated to people hugging each other. And we all wear signs in London, in Paris, and any place in the world. So down by a fountain by the Saturday market in downtown Portland.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of us wearing signs, and in this one section, and there's and maybe 10 or 12 or 15 people wearing signs and inviting people walking by to hug each other.
Oh, that's great.
And it's a little awkward at first because it's putting yourself out there.
It's vulnerable.
Yeah, vulnerable, yeah. And then when I left that area to go over to the food section, because my wife was hungry by that time, and I'm in another area where it isn't dedicated to the huggers.
Yeah.
And then people were approaching me as I'm sitting down eating, listening to music. Where'd you get that sign? Can I have that sign?
That's awesome.
And pretty soon this person will say, my brother wants one too. Do you have another one? Because I make 20 of them, you know.
Oh.
And it costs me about $40 to make these up when it's hug day.
Yeah, wow.
And that activity produces a feeling in me that's ongoing. When I think it's all over, someone approaches me because it's crowded down there like that.
Yeah.
And they're wanting a hug.
Right.
Out of the blue. For me, out of the blue, I didn't ask for them.
Yeah.
Or they're wanting a sign to wear so that they can get hugs.
Right.
It just does something for the whole darn day, man.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And it's impacting, you know, one person is impacting all those people around you, and you don't know what your impact's going to be.
Yeah.
That's
I think I know.
So tell me. Yeah, I want to hear your philosophy on that. We haven't talked about that. I think we have similar philosophies on that.
Yeah.
I give my Medicare customers hugs.
Do you?
Yeah. I give them a side hug, somewhat, you know, and sometimes they give me full frontal hugs. But if you think about that, that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
The insurance guy comes in your home, and at the end, he gives you a hug. It's just a natural affinity of feeling that warmth for people. And I understand that it's weird.
And you're good for them. You're visiting with them, doing your business or whatever you're doing because of who and how you are.
And it helps them, yeah. Only if it helps them, yeah. But it does, so, yeah. What do you want to do next?
You have any more pictures? Or you want another question you want to ask me?
I have pictures, but I don't know how it relates to our topic. Other than...
how can the voice of one make a difference in the world? There's a question. Questions for clarification. How can the voice of one, your voice, make a difference in the world? How can
that's a great
my voice make a difference in the world? My voice, whether it's a sign or speaking or whatever, my voice.
Let's get... I have one of the stories I prepared. So we talked about this concept, and then I gave you some examples about how to show that it was actually enacted. Otherwise, it's all rhetorical fluff.
Okay.
I mean, did you actually go out and go and do? All right. So here's an example, okay? It's just a story, kind of like my dad told stories, and I think that's why I opened up with this. So I'm going to tell you a story. And one day I was coming out of the gym, out of Bally's before it got purchased, and I was doing the spinning. And I've exercised all my life because I love the freedom of feeling young.
The spinning is being on the bicycle.
On the bicycle class, yeah. And I walked out and I heard a voice in my head that said, and I said, oh man, I feel so good. I feel so young. I think I was in my late 50s or something. And I heard a voice in my head that said, Michael, you feel this way because of Bob Aston, who's your wrestling coach. He had a residual impact on your life. And I heard that voice, like we've talking about, and I went, oh, that's true. He did do that for me. And then it said, you need to contact him and tell him about where you're at now and express appreciation to him, okay? And I went, how am I going to do that? I'm in Oregon. It's been 37 years. I don't know where he lives. Is he still alive? And I got a little frustrated, and then I shared it with my brother. My brother is very impulsive, and within a short period of time, he had Bob Aston on the phone. In a short period of time,
After all those years?
That's correct. And he was this mentor coach who loved these kids and changed their lives. He inspired us. He ran with us. He was gruff, but he inspired us. And who I am today is much have become him and my judo teacher as well. And so long story short, I believe that if you listen to that voice, there'll be a way that will open up, that will happen. And it doesn't make any sense. But we had a reunion down in California, and I was at his house with my son. And there we were on his table talking to him. And here I was for an hour expressing my appreciation to him out of that. And it flows out of that voice, that inspiration. Mm-hmm. You listen, you follow your intuitive nature, and before you know it, you're there. So I came home, I came back to Portland, and I got this second voice that said, that's not good enough. And I'm like, oh, what do I need to do? He goes, when you were in high school, we used to have breakfasts for you. And he would come and get you with a cheerleader, would wake you up out of your bed, and you might be in your underwear. And there she would be in your house. You're like, oh my gosh. And they would take you to the wrestling breakfast. You need to set up a brunch, and you need to bring all the wrestlers back and tell him what the impact that not only in your life, but others. Yeah. I went, how can I do that? I don't even know. And I remembered there were two people down in California in Walnut Creek. I called Robbie Gage, and I called my old cheerleader high school, Piper Miles. I said, I have this voice in me that's telling me to do this. Would you help? They said, I'll check back with you. They got together. They said, we'll do it. And one is spiritual, they're both deeply spiritual, but they're different people, religions. And before we knew it, we had a Facebook page set up, and they started reaching out across the country to find all these people. And we just started in October. In May, we held it, and I drove down with my best friend from high school from up in Sequim I hadn't seen for 20 years. And we drove down, and there was my old girlfriend that I hadn't seen, gave me a kiss on the lips, you know, when in front of my
She's
son.
going to watch this.
I know, my wife will watch it. And we drove over there, and this is a perfect example of this as far as making the power of one. It'll come to conclusion here in a second.
Sure.
And we went over, we drove over and picked him up in the morning. And we told him that we were just going to take him to brunch. And as we drove down the street, I started talking to him about the old wrestling breakfasts and how he goes, yeah, I remember that. He's in his 80s. And here's the man that impacted me, you know, and that I saw, that I visualized, that came to my mind, the voice coming out of the gym, and you go and do, and you follow the inner voice. And it always comes out in charity. It always comes out to lift and affirm somebody if you listen to it. Those are the feelings that make value in our life. We're coming down the street, and I go, Coach, I go, you remember those wrestling? Remember those? Yeah, he goes, yeah, those were great. I go, hey, Coach. I go, this is your brunch. I go, all the wrestlers are back. And he sees the balloons in the cars, and he goes, oh my gosh, you guys. And I get a little weepy, and my old girlfriend's in the back, and we pull up, and he's got his walker, and he gets out. And the night before, we thought about having all the wrestlers, there was about 70 of them, with name tags from the oldest to the youngest. So when he walked through the line, he could see them in their face. It was a reverence there, a powerful reverence. And oh my gosh, each of them grabbed his hand and looked in his face and said, thank you, Coach. It was something out of a movie. It was a fabulous thing. And they all went down the line. It took probably a good 20 or 30 minutes. And then we had this fabulous brunch. And then what we determined was at the latter end, each would stand up and talk on their feet. And all but one person got up, and they told all these marvelous stories about how this one person had influenced their life, and how they had come out like little branches and influenced multiple other people's lives, predominantly youth, and how he had changed their life and how they had changed his life. And they affirmed this man. People cried, they felt this wonderful affirmation, people of all different elements of life. And at the end, we broke up, and I got a call from him about expressing how that made him feel. And we told him, your life had great meaning. One person impacted those 70 people who impacted multiple other people. And one of the guys, Lee Noble, had taken 6th in the NCAA, had ended up as an example speaking, and he was a teacher for problem youth in San Jose area. he was impacting all these kids. Lee was a cocky, arrogant guy.
We got about 2 minutes left.
I don't care. So bottom line is, he passed away a year and a half after that. And that is a testimony of listening to your intuitive voice. It is always given in love, and it affirms other people.
In love.
That's correct. And it has tolerance. And one person can impact the lives of many. Sorry, I got on a rant there.
I love it.
But that is the aspect of it. If we could do that and infuse that in people, it would change our dynamics of much in the world.
Mama gave me a very powerful message, the most powerful message I've ever heard in my whole life. From as long as I remember, boy, be nice.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Yeah.
What else is there?
Very good.
Now, look in the camera and say something just for about 10 seconds or so, because we're going to have to stop.
I love Don, man. Give me a hug. I love Don. He's the bomb.
Thanks, man. All right.
I'm good.
It's been wonderful. Thank you.
you.
Okay, let's have a little PSA for a moment. So okay, to get my show's local broadcast schedule, go to my website, www.donbaham.com, and click on Present Day Activities. And we can tell you about to watch my shows on the web. Google Don Baham YouTube. There's hundreds of shows on there, all sorts of people I've interviewed, almost as interesting as my friend Jarman over here. And the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. America needs the ACLU because our civil liberties are being threatened dangerously. So Peg Media, ask other stations around the country to broadcast my shows. Go to www.pegmedia.org and follow the instructions on how to have my shows broadcast by other stations around the country. And thanks for watching. Remember KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind. Be friendly and be charitable to you too. And you too. And you too, nurse. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.